Hello, I am Girish Krishnani. And you are watching 5-Minute Learnings. This is the 9th video in the series of cognitive biases. We shall focus on the optimism bias in this video. The optimism bias is a tendency to overestimate the likelihood of good things happening to us while underestimating the probability that negative events will impact our lives. Essentially, we tend to be too optimistic for our own good. For example, we may assume that negative events like divorce, job loss, illness, death, won't affect us. The optimism bias has its roots in the availability heuristic, because you can think of examples of bad things happening to other people more easily. It seems more likely that others will be affected by them, and not us. This phenomenon is also called the illusion of invulnerability, unrealistic optimism, and personal fable. This bias leads us to believe that we are less likely to suffer misfortune and more likely to attain success than reality would suggest. We believe we will live longer than the average, that our children will be smarter than the average, and that we will be more successful in life than the average, but by definition, we all cannot be above average. The optimism bias was first described by a psychologist, Neil Weinstein, in 1980. In his study, he found that most college students believed their chances of developing an alcohol use disorder or getting divorced were lower than their peers, and that their chances of having positive outcomes in life, like owning a house and living into old age, were much higher than their peers. Negative effects of the optimism bias or the optimism bias conundrum. The optimism bias mean that we have an overly sunny outlook on our own lives. It can lead to poor decision-making, which may have disastrous results. For example, people might skip their yearly physical checkup, or fail to wear their seatbelt, because they mistakenly believe that things like getting ill, or a car accident, won't happen to them. Cognitive neuroscientist Tali Sharot, author of The Optimism Bias, A Tour of the Irrationally Positive Brain, notes that the optimism bias is widespread and can be seen in cultures all over the world. She suggests that while this bias can lead to negative outcomes at times, like foolishly engaging in risky behaviors or making poor choices about your health, it can also have benefits. If we expect good things to happen to us, we are more likely to be happy. This optimism can act as a self-fulfilling prophecy. By believing that they will be successful, people are, in fact, more likely to succeed. Being optimistic also motivates us to pursue our goals. After all, if we didn't think that we could achieve success, why would we even bother trying? Optimism also enhances well-being by creating a sense of anticipation about the future. Causes of the optimism bias. Some experts think that our brains were wired to be optimistic by evolution, while others cite cognitive and motivational factors. When we evaluate our risks, we compare our situation to others. But we are also egocentric, meaning that we focus on ourselves instead of realistically looking at how we compare to others. We're also highly motivated to be optimistic. By believing that we are unlikely to fail and more likely to succeed, we have more self-esteem, lower stress levels, and better overall well-being. Optimism bias is more likely to occur in infrequent and less probable events. For example, people may think they are not likely to be affected by hurricanes and floods simply because these occurrences don't happen every day. Control. We experience the optimism bias more when we think events are under our direct control and influence, because we think that we have the skills and know-how to manage the situation. Going through something yourself, that is, experiencing certain events firsthand, can reduce the optimism bias, as it shows that they are possible and perhaps even more likely than previously believed. Comparing to others, people are less likely to experience the optimism bias when they are comparing themselves to close loved ones, such as friends and family members. Mental health. People who are depressed or anxious are less likely to experience the optimism bias. While researchers have attempted to find ways to reduce the optimism bias, especially to discourage unhealthy habits, they have found that reducing or eliminating this bias is very difficult. Educating people about the risks have proven to yield very little change and, in some cases, increase the optimism bias. For example, telling someone that smoking can cause cancer can make them feel more invincible compared to other people. That's all on the optimism bias from my side. In the next video we shall learn about the Dunning-Kruger effect. Hope you found this video useful. If you liked it, give me a thumbs up, and subscribe to my channel, 5-Minute Learnings. And do remember to hit the bell icon, to get notified of the new videos. Thanks for watching.